There's something funny about Ed's Psych. It's never wrong. Unless it is. Welcome back, team. Your teaching coach is back for another training session. Remember, my goal is to help you develop your competence, your advocacy, and your ability to create justice in all the environments in which you do your work. If you've got those three qualities working in your favor and in the service of your students and communities, you're going to be unstoppable. So much of good teaching involves getting good habits of mind. So one of the fundamental habits of mind that great teachers have is that they are critical thinkers. They don't trust everything they think or that they're told. They don't take directions on faith, and most of the really great teachers that I've known don't take direction very well, actually. It's because they're constantly testing things for themselves to see what works in their own classroom with their own kids. Being skeptical of what we're told by our educational leaders is at the same time truly powerful and truly dangerous. It's dangerous because sometimes it takes these super independent thinking folks years to find answers to their teaching questions because they're stubbornly ignoring the science and evidence-based practices that exist that could be guiding them and helping them be high-performing teachers right out of the gate. And during that time that it takes them to develop their own knowledge base of teaching, their students could be missing out on important learning because those new teachers didn't trust in or didn't pay attention to their educational foundations and methods classes. In the long run, however, it can be very powerful for a teacher to approach their work like a doctor or lawyer does, learning from every interaction and understanding the nuances of each case. It's that approach that distinguishes a professional from an amateur, from someone that practices a craft to someone that does a job. It's that approach that makes the difference between teaching by the book and teaching from experience. Their critical thinking skills make them so attuned to the local needs of their students that the field-wide beliefs become background information to them because they've made up their own ways of understanding their profession. Truly competent teachers are a blend of both types, though. They understand that educational psychology is the root of all that we do, but that has its limits. First, let's talk about what educational psychology provides for us, and then we'll talk about what it doesn't do. At its most basic level, educational psychology provides a list of what's been done in the past to help people learn. If a technique has worked, someone wrote about it, and then the scholars then offered their best explanation for why it worked. Other scholars picked up that explanation and tested it, and then the cycle continued and expanded. One of the most basic pieces of educational psychology wisdom that I share with my students over and over and over is the idea of the zone of proximal development, published by Vygotsky in 1978, which is super weird because he died in 1934. This concept basically says that students can only learn that which is the next thing they are ready to learn. If they already know it, there's no need to learn it. And if it's too advanced, they have to learn other things before they can learn the first thing. We basically have to teach at their sweet spot of learning. Too easy, they get bored. Too hard, they get frustrated. So something as simple as always keeping the zone of proximal development in mind is a way of always keeping educational psychology concepts in your planning and instruction. Another educational psychology tidbit that I love is from Erik Erikson. He published the 8 Stages of Developmental Psychology in 1958, and these make a lot of sense to me, especially as I think about children growing into adolescence and then young adults and beyond. Babies struggle with hoping to get food and warmth and being able to sleep when they need to. And then toddlers learn the word no and start to figure out that they exist outside of their relationship with their parents. Middle schoolers grow into and out of their awkward phases, just trying to find things they can be good at, while teens try to figure out who they are. Knowing that these are expected behaviors at these ages helps teachers understand the struggles of these students and allows us to reframe the meanings behind what could be labeled as annoying behaviors from antisocial explosions into psychologically purposeful necessities. Heck, take a look at what 56-year-olds are doing. I'm fighting that fight between generativity and stagnation right now, and I'm starting a YouTube channel. It's an expected behavior for someone my age. I might even call it a midlife crisis if I plan to live to 112. Another much more complex example of educational psychology is the work of John Hattie. He and his team reviewed over 800 studies and aggregated the results to see exactly what interventions in education made the most difference. These results were originally published in his book called Visible Learning in 2008. They have made multiple updates since then. Many professional development hours and lots of professional learning community meetings have been spent reviewing these results. In fact, I bet that if you've been teaching for more than a handful of years, you've been in a training based on his work. Please let me know in the comments if you've been part of any of these meetings and what you've learned from them. Some of the interventions listed show a pretty significant effect size, while other interventions actually showed a negative effect and learning went down. Obviously, in such a short video, I'm not going to show you all there is to know about educational psychology, but I wanted you to know that the things I've shared with you are true. But they may not be universally true. Can you think about anything that Vygotsky, Erickson, and Hattie all have in common, along with many, many educational psychologists of the recent past? Many of them are white men who were mostly educated by white men. And I'm a white man too, and you should recognize this and ask me to go beyond just the white parts of the story. When I first started my teaching career, the fact that educational psychology was also a story of whiteness was invisible to me because of the privilege that I have as a white man. This doesn't mean that we throw it all out, but that we start doing better today in the ways that I'm about to talk about. Educational psychology, as is much of what we call science today, been rooted in Western thinking that has a belief about knowledge called positivism. Positivism is a belief that there is always just one right answer. But in my experience, and even more so as I keep gaining more experience, educational psychology doesn't work that way. It doesn't always work exactly the same across time, location, culture, and gender. Not everyone is always open to discussing that educational psychology hasn't always been good to people who are of the global majority, which means black and brown people, or to the LGBTQ plus folks, or even to women. Educational psychology has been used to justify some terrible atrocities in the name of science. We've stopped calling certain types of autism Asperger syndrome because Dr. Asperger was a Nazi who was using precursors of educational psychology to determine which groups of people with developmental disabilities were trainable and which were sent to be exterminated in the concentration camps. People who are supposedly knowledgeable about educational psychology in schools were involved in the creation of boarding schools to which Native American children were kidnapped from their parents and forcibly assimilated to Western culture and language, many dying at the hands of their teachers. Even today, we're still trying to sort out why we have an excess of black and brown students being labeled as disabled as they are excluded from or struggle to get equitable access to their education across the United States. This is why I say that educational psychology is always right unless it isn't. Competent teachers know the language of their field, and they advocate that their students get evidence-based interventions. They also seek justice when those evidence-based interventions aren't working or are even harmful to their students. But justice is sought by using science against science, not merely protesting. Teachers use critical thinking skills and do action research in their own classrooms. This video isn't a course on action research, but once you notice that something isn't working the way it should be, Start collecting data. You might not know what data to gather, so talk to your colleagues about it. If you're working with the same population of students, they might be noticing the same thing and you could work together. Talk it over with an administrator and check to see if your district offers any grants for supplies so that you could try a different approach to how you're teaching in this area. Evaluate your new data and see if things got better or worse. Share your results and keep going. In this video, you saw that the role of educational psychology is very important to teachers because it is part of what makes us a community of professionals. We can't be considered competent educators without paying close attention to educational psychology, fundamental theories and methods. You also saw that by ignoring evidence-based practices, teachers are not doing the best for their students because they're not holding themselves accountable to knowing and implementing the professional standards of our field. Finally, even when we hold fast to doing as our field tells us, we may be missing out on providing justice to our students because we may be trying to implement practices that were never intended to work for or tested with our students in mind. Unless a study intentionally is designed with Black, Native, Latine, or LGBTQ+ students in mind, we don't know how an intervention will affect them, and it is up to each of us to tread carefully so we don't marginalize those students any further. If you like this content, please hit the like button and make sure you've subscribed. Please share this video with a friend or with an enemy if you think they might benefit from it. And of course, please leave a comment about something you'd like to know more about or with a problem you'd like to see me address in a future video. Until next time, stay strong, stay healthy, and get some rest.